Hey everyone, it's Stacy from My Petite Garden. Welcome back to another video and welcome if you are new here. Today we are starting off this video with a snowy morning. We had quite a bit of accumulation of snow overnight. So when we woke up this morning, there was a winter wonderland outside. All the trees and the plants were beautifully dusted and covered in snow. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but for me, winter hasn't truly arrived until you've had a good proper snowfall. As I was opening the curtains this morning, I looked outside and saw the beautiful winter scenery with all the snow, and it just made me so happy and grateful, and also gave me a nice cozy feeling. I love it when the morning after a snowfall, it's a sunny day and you look out the window and the sun is beaming through it. And I also think it's pretty amazing seeing all the greenery and your plants inside the house contrasted to the winter scenery that is outside. So this morning, I'm going to take you along to do some light plant maintenance around the house. The first thing I'm going to do is upgrade the stake. Well, when I say upgrade, I mean extend the stake. I have this plastic stake that is extendable, so you just need to remove the cap off of the stake that you currently have. And then with the extended stake, you're also going to remove the cap off of that, and you're going to replace it with the connecting cap, I guess you could call it. So the connecting piece is here, and you're just going to put it on one end of the new stake that you're going to add, and then connect that with your original stake. And it's really easy to use. And then there you go. You have an extended stake and you can keep extending it. And then it also comes with this, I guess, ring you would call it. So what it does is it clips onto the stake, and then it will also hold your plant into place against the stake. So here we are. The stake is pretty high now, and this plant will have quite a bit of room to grow. This is my philodendron glad hands. It's upsized quite a bit. You can see that largest new leaf there. It's huge. So I want to keep it on the stake so that it can keep upsizing its leaves. So hopefully it'll be happy, and we'll see how it does. Next, we're going to do a little bit of pruning on my Sinningia here. The leaves on here are pretty tired out now, so I think it's time to trim it back. I always cut back the leaves after a while, and after I notice that the leaves look a little bit past its prime. And once I clip it back, it will probably sprout back pretty soon after. At least that's been my experience with the specimen that I have. I've had this for quite a few years now, so it's always bounced back pretty quickly for me. I also just wanted to show you guys how furry these leaves are, and I think that's what makes this plant so fun. So it's got hair on the leaves, and it almost feels like a pet. And the stems are also furry. I would say it feels like the texture of velvet, maybe. It's quite similar to that. And then as I was rearranging the plants, I noticed that on my Hoya sigillatus acai, there was a mealybug on one of the leaves, as you see here. So I'm just gonna get rid of it with a little bit of alcohol on a cotton swab. I checked the rest of the plant. There were no other mealybugs. It was just on that one leaf. So I'm gonna keep an eye on it. I feel like nowadays I am constantly on alert, on the lookout for mealybugs on my Hoyas. Now I'm just gonna do a little bit of cleaning maintenance on my Stephania cephalantha. There are some dead stems that I haven't removed since I got the plant, so we're gonna do that now. And this plant has also woken up and grown so much for me, and it is so beautiful. I can't wait to show you guys. How beautiful are these little dainty leaves growing on the vine? It has grown so much better than my Stephania erecta ever had, and I no longer have that plant, but this one I think is loving life right now. I'm just cleaning off some of the blooms, so yes, it did start blooming as well, and then the leaves came shortly after. So now the plant is just vining everywhere, and the leaves are just so cute. I think this has got to be one of my favorite Caltex plants that I've grown. Not only is it very visually appealing to me, I also think that once it starts leafing out, it adds so much interest to your plant shelf, or even just as decor around the house. I think it would look beautiful. Another one of my Caltex that is currently leafing out is my Dioscorea elephantipes. And then my Philanthus mirabilis, another Caltex, is currently past its prime. I think I'm gonna have to cut off the leaves pretty soon. Not just yet, but pretty soon. You can tell the leaves at the very beginning of the Caltex is starting to fall and turn color. I also wanted to show you some update on my silver dollar vine that I repotted in a previous video. It is growing. Do you see those stems over there? These are all brand new, and I'm really excited. I'm going to also show you some blooms on my Hoya ETS 10. It is blooming once again, and this cluster of blooms is actually probably the best one I've had so far. Alright, so after the plant maintenance, I baked some more of the cookie dough from Trader Joe's, the gluten-free cookie dough, because they're so yummy. And I know last time I didn't show you the final product. Well, here they are now, and I think this batch is the best one I've made so far. Later that afternoon, when it was warmer out, we all went outside to play in the snow. Ollie enjoys it so much because he is an Alaskan Klikai, so he loves winter, he loves snow, this is where he thrives. And it was so nice seeing him being able to play in the snow. We also decided to try building a snowman for the first time ever. So we had no idea what we were doing, and we were just trying a bunch of different things. And you'll see what we ended up with. I even ended up having to Google how to build a snowman while we were doing this because it just wasn't working. And I think the problem was the snow needed to be a little bit on the wetter side in order for the snow to form into the shape that you want. And then as we were trying to put the nose in, the chin of the snowman's head fell off. So there's that. Before we start this part of the video, I just wanted to apologize if some part of the footage lighting is very dark. I didn't realize how quickly we were losing daylight, and I tried my best to adjust the lighting while editing. Hey everyone! I wanted to take a moment to sit down with you and share some of the books that I've read in the month of January. It's the new year, so I wanted to let you guys know how my reading is going thus far. And I'm happy to say that there are quite a few books here that I've read that I had mentioned in a previous video of books that I want to get to from my physical TBR in 2025. So I'm making some progress, which I'm very happy about. Yeah, so let's get started. First book that I've read in January is the final book, which is the third book of the Prison Healer series. This is a YA fantasy, and the third book and final book is called The Blood Trader. I finally finished this series, and I gave it, I think overall, a 4-star. I think each book was around a 4-star rating for me, and I had a good time reading it. There were some parts in it that I found quite repetitive, and of course it's YA, so maybe a little bit juvenile as well. But in this third book, and I'm not gonna say too much obviously about the plot of this book, but there are two characters in this book that really made it for me. Like, I really enjoyed it because of these two characters. They are they're funny, they're fun to read about, they have such personality, and it just made it very memorable. So that was really the highlight of this series for me, honestly. Even the main character and her relationship with the main male character, I wasn't too invested in. I actually found that in the third book, their relationship was a little bit back and forth, a lot of back and forth that I kind of lost interest in. So if it wasn't for these two characters, and I'm not going to say who they are because that might actually give some things away for those of you who haven't read this series yet or is interested in reading it. So overall, I did enjoy it and glad I read it. Then after that, I read, and this is a big one for me because I've had this book for so long, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. It was incredible. I had an absolute blast of a time reading this. It tugged at my heartstrings in a way that I never anticipated. And I told my friend to also read this book. And in the very beginning, she immediately said to me, wow, this is one of the geekiest book I've read because of the subject matter. There is a lot of talk of video games. Yes, and the making of video games and how video games are made and the whole process of it. I am not someone that is even remotely interested in video games. So for me to say that I enjoy this book, it means that you don't have to enjoy video games in any way to enjoy this book. I found that the way the author wrote the video game part of the story made it very relatable. She almost made it like everything that she talked about in terms of video games is somehow relatable to some part of life. And I really appreciated that. The way she writes, I really resonate with. I felt for each of these characters. The blurb or the synopsis mentions Sam and Sadie as our main characters. But to me, I feel like Marks, another character that shows up in this book, is really, for me, a very big part of the storyline as well. And I feel like he is such a crucial part of the story. I felt most invested in him and his story. I felt like he was such an easy person to love, or easy character to love, and just the way he gives and loves is so special. I was so close to giving this a 5-star until I got to one of the later chapters, maybe like a chapter somewhere here. In that chapter, I felt like that was I was lost when I read that chapter because it was out of nowhere. It was a chapter that I felt like didn't belong and almost had no purpose. I felt like it dragged the story on a little bit where it really wasn't necessary. And that kind of ruined the ending a little bit for me. So that's why I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars instead, because I was so close to the end of the book. And then I was like, what is happening? The ending, I felt like, could have been more of the rest of the book. It felt like it kind of took a turn, at least for me. If any of you have read this book, let me know your thoughts, because I really would love to discuss this further. There's so much to unpack with the story like this. I actually really, really love Gabrielle Zevin's writing. I have one more book on her backlist, The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. I think after Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, I read a thriller by Alice Feeney, His and Hers. That book have been a book that I've wanted to read for a while, and it finally came through on my library through Libby. So I finally read it. It was a very fast read. I love Alice Feeney. She is my favorite thriller author. I read her Rock, Paper, Scissors. I think that's probably one of her most popular books. I really enjoyed that one. And then I read Daisy Darker, which I also had a great time reading. And I loved that within the story, there's always a lesson to be learned. There's a lot of life advice in her characters. I almost feel like Alice Feeney writes her thrillers in a very literary way. There's always more to the story than just being a regular thriller. I find myself learning a lot just about life in general through her books, which is very rare because with thrillers, I feel like I don't necessarily get that. I usually just go in for the thrill, right? Like, I love it when an author can make me think and reflect on things. She has a new book that's coming out this month. I don't know if it's already out already. It's called Beautiful Ugly. I would love to get my hands on that and read it. Let me know what you guys think if you have read that book. I'm very intrigued with it. And then next, I read another. Oh, did I mention? So these first two books that I read, they're both on my list from my previous video where I said I want to hold myself accountable to get some of these books off of my physical TBR. These are both from that list, so I'm very happy. The next one is also, I finally read Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukigawa. I really like this one. It's so heartwarming, it's so wholesome. The main takeaway from this book, I would say, is learning acceptance of others, of yourself, learning to be compassionate with yourself and with others, and also giving yourself grace, because oftentimes we are too hard on ourselves. We judge ourselves more than anybody else. And sometimes we think the worst of ourselves. I think this book teaches us to kind of value every little experience that you have in your life, no matter if it's big or small. I think this book is so beautiful. And at the same time, you also get these delicious words on a page about sweet bean paste and just cooking and all these different desserts. It's beautiful. It's very wholesome. The only thing is there are talk about very serious topics, but at the same time, I feel like it's done in a very wholesome way. It wasn't a 5-star read for me. I think it's the ending. I wanted like it to be nicely wrapped up, but the ending was a little bit kind of, I don't know if it's open ended. So, but that's probably it. Like I had a great time with it. I think I gave it a 4 stars. Oh, how did I forget to talk about this? Found Family. If you love Found Family as much as I do, this is the book for you. It's so sweet. Enjoyed another one of it. This so far in January, I've had a pretty good reading month. And the most recent book that I read is a short story by Toni Morrison, Recitative. And I actually have read Toni Morrison before when I was in school, high school and college. I don't remember much of it, to be very honest. I just know that she's a very loved author. This is her only short story that has ever been published or she's ever written. And it's really short. The book is the story itself is only around 30 pages, but there is a introduction that takes up quite a bit of the book. I didn't read the introduction. I started reading it and then I'm like, I don't know if I want to continue reading it without reading the story first, because it seemed like it was going into a lot of depth about the story itself. So I read the story, and so I'm just going to base this off of what I read in the story. The story basically talks about two girls that pretty much grew up together in an kind of like a orphan situation. Like they were both dropped off by their mom to live in a shelter, and they kind of got each other through some tough times. Now, the more interesting thing about the story is the way this book was written. I think Toni Morrison wanted the reader to kind of experiment a little bit with their brain. So the two girls, one is supposed to be white and one is supposed to be African American, but she never says who is what. So you don't know which character in here is which race. So you kind of have to play a little bit with the story and what you think is happening here, because this is, at the end of the day, I think this is a story about race. It says in here that Toni Morrison herself described this story as an experiment in the removal of all racial codes from a narrative about two characters of different races for whom racial identity is crucial. But she doesn't tell you which character is which race. So, Recitative is a remarkable look into what keeps us together and what keeps us apart, and about how perceptions are made tangible by reality. It's really interesting. The concept of the book is very interesting. However, I couldn't for some reason, really connect with the story itself and the characters. I don't know if maybe I'm just the type of reader that needs things written out for me, or maybe it's just a little too smart for me and I'm just not at that level of a reader. While I do appreciate when books make me think about certain issues and aspects of life, sometimes it might be a little too abstract for me and I might not really grasp the the point of it. In the end, I really like the concept of it. However, because of the things I said before, I ended up giving it a 3 stars, because I just didn't mm, I didn't connect with it the way that a lot of other readers have, and this is a very beloved book. Alright, so I think that will be it for this little book segment, and I think we're gonna round up this video as well here, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.